The Forbidden Love. Aelira, the princess of the powerful Zelorith Empire, stood at the balcony of her royal palace, looking out at the glowing skyline of her homeworld. The vast, shimmering towers reflected the advanced technology and wealth of her people. But despite the beauty around her, Aelira felt a deep emptiness. Her heart ached with longing for something, or rather someone, far beyond the stars. It had been months since Aelira had last seen Ethan, the human ambassador from Earth. Their relationship was something no one could ever know about. The Zelorith were one of the most advanced and proud civilizations in the galaxy. They viewed humans as primitive, reckless, and unworthy of any real interaction beyond trade or diplomacy. But Aelira saw something different in them, especially in Ethan. They had met during one of the diplomatic summits between Earth and the Zelorith Empire. Ethan, representing Earth, was confident, kind, and intelligent. Though humans were far behind the Zelorith in terms of technology, Aelira had been captivated by Ethan's courage and determination. Their first meeting had been professional, but over time, their conversations grew more personal, more intimate. Ethan would often speak about Earth, its blue oceans, green forests, and a complexity of human emotions. He had a way of speaking that made her feel like she was discovering a part of the galaxy she had never known existed. For Aelira, it had started as simple curiosity, wanting to understand more about humans, but it quickly turned into something more. She had fallen in love with Ethan, even though she knew the risks. No Zelorith royalty had ever engaged in a relationship with a human. If her family found out, it would be seen as the ultimate betrayal. But the heart doesn't follow rules, and neither did Aelira's. One night, under the cover of darkness, she would sneak away from the palace to meet Ethan. They would spend hours talking, laughing, and dreaming about a future where their love could exist openly. Aelira had never felt so alive. Ethan's touch was gentle, his words soothing. He spoke to her not as a princess, but as Aelira, the woman behind the title. It was a feeling she had never experienced in her entire life of duty and responsibility. But the weight of their secret love was growing heavier with each passing day. Aelira knew that her time with Ethan was limited. Her royal duties were increasing, and the suspicions of her family were growing stronger. Her father, Emperor Thiller, was a stern and proud ruler who expected nothing but loyalty to the Zelorith way of life. He had already begun asking her why she was disappearing so often, and the palace guards had noticed her late-night absences. Despite the danger, Aelira couldn't stop seeing Ethan. Every moment with him felt like a stolen treasure, a brief escape from the pressures of her royal life. But deep down, she feared the day they would be caught. One evening, as they sat together by a quiet river on one of the Zelorith moons, Ethan gently held her hand. "Aelira, we can't keep doing this forever," he said softly, his brown eyes filled with concern. "Your people would never accept me, and my people wouldn't understand us." Aelira looked away, her heart torn in two. "I know," she whispered, "but I don't care what they think. I love you, Ethan. I don't want to lose you." He smiled sadly. "I love you too, more than you can imagine. But what happens when they find out? What happens when your family discovers the truth?" Aelira had no answer. She knew the consequences could be devastating, but she wasn't ready to give him up. "Not yet. We'll find a way," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "We'll find a way to make this work." But deep down, Aelira knew their love was doomed from the start. She was the heir to an empire, bound by tradition and duty. Ethan was a human, an outsider in her world. And the forces that kept them apart were stronger than either of them could ever imagine. As the night grew darker, Aelira rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, savoring the moment. She didn't know when they would meet again, or if they would ever be able to. But for now, she wanted to forget about the world, about her responsibilities, and just be with the man she loved. Little did she know, their secret was already beginning to unravel. Back at the palace, whispers were spreading. The royal family was growing suspicious, and Aelira's betrayal was about to come to light. Cliffhanger. The love that once brought Elira peace would soon become the source of Earth's greatest threat. The discovery. Elira returned to the royal palace late at night, her heart still fluttering from her secret meeting with Ethan. She was careful, as always, making sure no one saw her as she slipped through the quiet halls toward her chambers. But the unease gnawing at her grew stronger with each passing day. Her family was bound to notice her strange behavior sooner or later. The next morning, as she prepared for her daily royal duties, Elira could feel the tension in the air. The palace felt different, colder somehow. As she dressed, her personal attendant, Mira, gave her a curious glance. Mira had served Elira since childhood, always loyal and protective. But lately, Mira's glances had shifted from curiosity to suspicion. "Is everything all right, Princess?" Mira asked carefully, her voice gentle but probing. Elira forced a smile. "Of course, Mira. Why wouldn't it be?" Mira hesitated for a moment, clearly struggling with what to say next. "You've been distant lately. I've noticed you slipping away late at night. You've been missing important meetings, and your father, he's starting to ask questions." Elira's heart raced. She tried to keep her expression calm, but inside, panic began to build. "I've just been overwhelmed with my duties, that's all." But Mira didn't look convinced. She had always been perceptive, and Elira knew it was only a matter of time before Mira discovered the truth. "If something is troubling you, Princess, I hope you know you can confide in me. You've always trusted me, haven't you?" Elira nodded, her throat tightening. She desperately wanted to trust Mira, but the risk was too great. The truth about Ethan had to remain a secret. If anyone found out about their forbidden love, it would mean disaster for both of them, and for Earth. Later that day, Elira attended a meeting with her father, Emperor Thaler. The grand hall of the palace was bustling with Zelorith officials, all discussing the latest diplomatic matters. Elira took her seat beside her father, trying to appear composed. Emperor Thaler was a towering figure, both physically and in presence. His silver eyes scanned the room with authority, and when he spoke, everyone listened. "Our latest negotiations with the humans are progressing," he announced, his deep voice echoing through the hall. "But we must be vigilant. We cannot allow them to gain too much influence in the galaxy. They are still an unpredictable species." Elira's heart sank at her father's words. She knew how the Zelorith viewed humans, beneath them, almost unworthy of true respect. They tolerated Earth's existence, but only because of the resources and trade Earth provided. The thought of what her father would do if he discovered her relationship with Ethan terrified her. As the meeting continued, Elira's mind wandered. She thought about Ethan, about the moments they had shared, and the future they had dreamed of together. But that future seemed more impossible with each passing day. How could she ever reconcile her duty as a princess with her love for a human? Suddenly, her father's voice pulled her back to reality. "Elira," Emperor Thaler said, his sharp gaze locking onto her, "I've been hearing unsettling rumors. It seems you've been distracted lately." Elira froze. The entire room went silent, all eyes on her. She forced herself to meet her father's gaze, trying to keep her voice steady. "I assure you, Father, everything is under control." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Is it? You've been missing meetings, disappearing at odd hours. People are talking, Elira, and I do not tolerate weakness or dishonesty in this family." Elira felt the weight of his words like a crushing force. She had always known this day would come, but she wasn't ready for it. "Not yet. I've just been dealing with personal matters," she said carefully. "It won't affect my duties, I promise." Emperor Thaler studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "I hope for your sake that's true, because if I find out you've been hiding something from me, the consequences will be severe." The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud. Elira knew her father's words weren't just a warning. They were a promise. If he discovered her betrayal, not only would she lose everything, but Ethan's life would be in danger. And Earth, Earth would face the full wrath of the Zellorith Empire. After the meeting, Alira rushed back to her chambers, her mind racing. She couldn't keep this secret much longer. The walls were closing in, and it was only a matter of time before her father uncovered the truth. She needed to find a way to protect Ethan, to protect Earth, before it was too late. But unknown to Alira, the palace spies had already been watching her. Someone had been following her every move, and her secret meetings with Ethan were no longer hidden in the shadows. The truth was about to come to light, and the consequences would be catastrophic. The unveiling. Alira's heart raced as she approached the secluded meeting spot where she and Ethan had met countless times before. It was hidden deep in a forest on the outskirts of the royal city, far from the prying eyes of the palace. Tonight, she had to tell Ethan the truth. Her father was growing suspicious, and their secret was on the verge of being exposed. As Alira approached, she saw Ethan waiting for her, his face lit by the soft glow of the moonlight. His human features were a stark contrast to her own alien appearance, his soft brown hair, his warm eyes. But to her, he was everything. She had never felt this way about anyone before, and she knew she never would again. "Ethan," she called softly, her voice trembling slightly. He turned toward her, a smile lighting up his face. "Alira," he replied, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "You look worried. What's wrong?" Alira hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to begin. She knew this would change everything. "My father, he suspects something. He's been asking questions, and I fear he's getting too close to the truth." Ethan's smile faded, concern washing over his features. "What does that mean for us?" Alira took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "If he finds out about us, Ethan, he'll see it as a betrayal. He'll use it as a reason to strike against Earth. My father, he's ruthless when it comes to what he sees as threats to the Empire." Ethan's expression darkened. "You mean he would start a war? Just because of us?" Alira nodded, her heart heavy. "He's always seen humanity as a lesser species, something to be controlled or destroyed if necessary. If he finds out his daughter is in love with a human, it could be the spark that ignites that war." For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Alira could feel the tension building, the danger looming closer with each passing moment. She knew they had little time left. "We have to run," Ethan said suddenly, his voice filled with determination. "We can leave the planet, disappear before your father finds out. We can find a way to be together, far away from all of this." Alira's heart ached at the thought. As much as she wanted to be with Ethan, to leave everything behind and escape the Empire's wrath, she knew it wasn't that simple. "Ethan, it's not just about us anymore. If we run, my father will still see it as a betrayal. He'll blame humanity, and Earth will be his target. There's no escape from that." Ethan stared at her, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "So what do we do?" Before Alira could answer, a sudden rustling in the trees caught her attention. She tensed, her instincts kicking in. "Someone's here," she whispered urgently. Ethan glanced around, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Are we being followed?" Just as he asked, a group of Zellorith soldiers emerged from the darkness, their armor gleaming in the moonlight. At the front of the group stood Commander Rykar, a loyal officer of the Emperor and one of Alira's most trusted allies. But now, his expression was cold, calculating. "Princess Alira," Rykar said, his voice filled with authority. "We've been watching you for some time. It seems you've been keeping secrets from your father." Alira's blood ran cold. They had been discovered. "Rykar, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Rykar interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "You've been consorting with a human. You've betrayed the Empire." Ethan stepped forward, standing protectively in front of Alira. "This has nothing to do with the Empire. This is between us." Rykar's gaze shifted to Ethan, and he sneered. "You think the Emperor will see it that way? You've put Earth in grave danger, human. The moment the Emperor hears of this, he will order its destruction. Elira's heart pounded in her chest. She had to think fast. Rykar, you don't have to tell my father. Please, let us go. No one has to know. But Rykar shook his head. I'm loyal to the Emperor, Princess. I cannot betray him. As the soldiers moved closer, Elira knew there was no way out. She had to make a choice, fight, flee, or surrender. But before she could decide, Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the dense forest. Run, he shouted. They sprinted through the trees, the sound of the soldiers chasing after them growing louder. Elira's heart raced, adrenaline surging through her veins. She had never felt so afraid, so desperate. If they were caught, it would mean the end of their love, of Earth, of everything. But as they ran deeper into the forest, Elira realized something else. This was no longer just about protecting their secret. It was about survival. And now, with Rykar and the soldiers on their trail, the stakes were higher than ever. Cliffhanger. As Elira and Ethan flee for their lives, the threat of betrayal looms closer. Will they escape Rykar's grasp, or will the truth about their love ignite a war between Earth and the Zellorith Empire? Cliffhanger. The stage is set for betrayal, as Elira's secret love is on the verge of being exposed. How long can she protect Ethan and Earth from the wrath of the Zellorith Empire? The escape plan. Elira's breath was ragged as she and Ethan dashed through the dense forest. Twigs snapped under their feet, and branches scratched at her skin, but she didn't dare slow down. Behind them, Rykar and his soldiers were relentless in their pursuit. The sound of their footsteps and voices grew louder, closer, with every passing moment. We won't make it far like this, Ethan muttered, glancing over his shoulder. His face was tense with determination, but Elira could see the worry in his eyes. I know, Elira replied between heavy breaths. But we need to get to the hidden shuttle. It's our only chance. The secret shuttle, an old craft from the days before the Zellorith Empire rose to power, was hidden deep within the forest. It was something her father had forgotten about, but Elira had found it years ago and kept it as her personal escape route, should she ever need it. She had never imagined she would need it for this. As they ran, Ethan squeezed her hand, offering a silent reassurance. We'll make it, he said softly, though his voice was filled with doubt. The forest grew darker as they ventured deeper, the thick canopy blocking out the light of the moon. It was disorienting, but Elira knew the path by heart. Every step, every turn, was etched into her memory. She could feel the pull of the shuttle, hidden just beyond the ridge suddenly. A blaster shot rang out, striking the tree trunk just inches from Elira's head. She gasped, pulling Ethan down with her behind the cover of a large rock. They're gaining on us, Ethan whispered, peeking over the rock to catch a glimpse of their pursuers. Elira's mind raced. They were too close now. If they kept running, they wouldn't make it to the shuttle in time. But there was something else she had. A device, a cloaking field generator, built into her bracelet. It was experimental and unstable, but it could give them the cover they needed. We have one chance, Elira said, activating the device with a flick of her wrist. A shimmering field enveloped them, distorting the space around them, making them invisible to the naked eye. Ethan stared at her in surprise. What is this? Cloaking field, Elira explained hurriedly. It won't last long, but it might buy us enough time. They stayed perfectly still, their bodies pressed against the cold rock as the soldiers drew nearer. Elira could hear their footsteps now, hear Rykar barking orders, urging his men to keep searching. But as they ran deeper into the forest, Elira realized something else. This was no longer just about protecting their secret. It was about survival. And now, with Rykar and the soldiers on their trail, the stakes were higher than ever. Cliffhanger. As Elira and Ethan flee for their lives, the threat of betrayal looms closer. Will they escape Rykar's grasp, or will the truth about their love ignite a war between Earth and the Zellorith Empire. Cliffhanger. The stage is set for betrayal, as Elira's secret love is on the verge of being exposed. How long can she protect Ithan and Earth from the wrath of the Zellorith Empire? The escape plan. Elira's breath was ragged as she and Ithan dashed through the dense forest. Twigs snapped under their feet, and branches scratched at her skin, but she didn't dare slow down. Behind them, Rykar and his soldiers were relentless in their pursuit. The sound of their footsteps and voices grew louder, closer, with every passing moment. "We won't make it far like this," Ethan muttered, glancing over his shoulder. His face was tense with determination, but Elira could see the worry in his eyes. "I know," Elira replied between heavy breaths, "but we need to get to the hidden shuttle. It's our only chance." The secret shuttle, an old craft from the days before the Zellorith Empire rose to power, was hidden deep within the forest. It was something her father had forgotten about, but Elira had found it years ago and kept it as her personal escape route, should she ever need it. She had never imagined she would need it for this. As they ran, Ethan squeezed her hand, offering a silent reassurance. "We'll make it," he said softly, though his voice was filled with doubt. The forest grew darker as they ventured deeper, the thick canopy blocking out the light of the moon. It was disorienting, but Elira knew the path by heart. Every step, every turn, was etched into her memory. She could feel the pull of the shuttle, hidden just beyond the ridge suddenly. A blaster shot rang out, striking a tree trunk just inches from Elira's head. She gasped, pulling Ethan down with her behind the cover of a large rock. "They're gaining on us," Ethan whispered, peeking over the rock to catch a glimpse of their pursuers. Elira's mind raced. They were too close now. If they kept running, they wouldn't make it to the shuttle in time. But there was something else she had. A device, a cloaking field generator, built into her bracelet. It was experimental and unstable, but it could give them the cover they needed. "We have one chance," Elira said, activating the device with a flick of her wrist. A shimmering field enveloped them, distorting the space around them, making them invisible to the naked eye. Ethan stared at her in surprise. "What is this?" "Cloaking field," Elira explained hurriedly. "It won't last long, but it might buy us enough time." They stayed perfectly still, their bodies pressed against the cold rock as the soldiers drew nearer. Elira could hear their footsteps now, hear Rykar barking orders, urging his men to keep searching. Elira could hear their footsteps now, hear Rykar barking orders, urging his men to keep searching. "They can't have gone far," Rykar's voice echoed through the trees. "Find them." Elira held her breath as the soldiers passed by their hiding spot, mere feet away. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she prayed the field wouldn't flicker or fail. The tension in the air was suffocating, every second feeling like an eternity. Finally, after what felt like hours, the soldiers moved on, disappearing into the forest. Elira exhaled slowly, her body trembling from the adrenaline. "We need to move," she whispered to Ethan. "The shuttle is just ahead." Ethan nodded, his expression resolute. "Let's go." They rose from their hiding spot and continued their journey, now moving more cautiously. The sound of the soldiers had faded, but Elira knew it wouldn't be long before they circled back. The cloaking field had already begun to flicker, its energy draining faster than she had hoped. Within minutes they reached the ridge. Elira scanned the area, and there it was, the shuttle, hidden beneath a canopy of leaves and branches. Relief washed over her. "There," she pointed, tugging Ethan toward the craft. They quickly uncovered the shuttle, its sleek silver exterior still intact despite its age. Elira punched in the access code, and the hatch hissed open, revealing the small cockpit inside. "Hurry," she urged, climbing in and powering up the systems. The gathering storm. Elira stared out at the stars from the window of their small hidden base, her mind heavy with the weight of what was coming. Earth's fate was sealed. The Emperor's fleet, spearheaded by Rykar, was preparing for an all-out assault. Her father had discovered the truth of her betrayal, and now humanity would pay the ultimate price. The signal they had intercepted hours ago confirmed her worst fears. Dozens of warships were amassing on the edge of Earth's solar system. Elira's once complicated feelings for humanity, for Ethan, now burned with a fierce determination. She could no longer run, and neither could Ethan. This was a fight for survival. "Are you sure this is the right call?" Ethan's voice broke the silence. He stepped up beside her, his expression grim but resolute. His normally calm demeanor was hardened by the knowledge of the destruction looming over his planet. Elira nodded, her gaze fixed on the swirling galaxy beyond. "It's the only call we have left. If we don't act now, Earth is lost. My father, he won't hesitate." Ethan took a deep breath, the weight of the situation pressing down on his shoulders. "So what's the plan? We can't exactly fight an entire Imperial fleet with a rebel base and an old shuttle." Elira turned to him, her eyes determined. "No, but we can disrupt their fleet. I know their command structure. If we can disable the flagship's main systems, the fleet will be in chaos. It's a long shot, but it could buy Earth enough time to mount a defense." Ethan frowned, but his trust in Elira was unwavering. "You're saying we take the fight directly to them?" "Yes," Elira replied. "I've sent a message to Earth's military. They don't fully trust me, but they know the stakes. If we can cripple the flagship, they'll have a chance to rally their forces." Ethan's jaw tightened. He had always thought of himself as a survivor, but now, standing beside Elira, he felt like something more. A fighter, a protector. "Then we do it. I'll pilot the shuttle, and you'll guide me to the heart of that ship." Elira smiled softly. "You're not afraid." "Terrified," Ethan admitted with a laugh. "But what choice do we have?" As they gathered what little resources they had left, the tension between them was palpable. This mission wasn't just about survival. It was about trust. Elira was leading Ethan into a fight against her own people, and if they failed, Earth would be no more. There was no room for error. Moments later, they were aboard the shuttle, its engines roaring to life. The plan was reckless, and they both knew it. But sometimes recklessness was all that was left. Elira programmed the coordinates into the shuttle's navigation system. Their target, the Imperial flagship. As they launched into the black void of space, Ethan glanced over at Elira. "You know, when I met you, I never imagined I'd be flying into battle against an alien empire." Elira smiled despite the tension. "And I never imagined I'd be helping a human save his world." The shuttle sliced through the stars, moving at full speed toward the looming fleet on the edge of the system. As they approached, the sight was staggering. An armada of ships, massive and menacing, all centered around the colossal flagship. It was the Emperor's pride, a symbol of his dominance. Elira's fingers tightened around the controls. "This is it." "Ready?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. Elira nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. "Remember, we just need to get close enough to plant the disruptor. Once we're inside, we'll have minutes, maybe less." Ethan's grip on the shuttle controls tightened as they entered the fleet's perimeter. The ships were positioned like predators, ready to strike at any moment. They had to be careful, swift, and silent. Suddenly, alarms blared through the cockpit. "We've been detected," Elira said, her voice sharp. Ethan cursed under his breath. "Hang on." With a sharp turn, the shuttle dove between the colossal ships, weaving through the maze of metal and firepower. Blaster shots began to rain down around them as they dodged and swerved, barely keeping ahead of the barrage. Elira's eyes were focused on the flagship. "We just need to get closer." But Rykar wasn't going to let them reach their target easily. His voice crackled through the comms, mocking and filled with venom. "Running won't save you, Elira. This ends now." Ethan growled, his hands gripping the controls with fierce determination. "Not today." With one final burst of speed, they broke through the defenses and reached the flagship's docking bay. The shuttle skidded to a halt inside the massive hangar, alarms blaring throughout the ship. Alyra was already out of her seat, grabbing the disruptor device. "Let's move." They sprinted through the docking bay, blaster fire raining down from the Imperial soldiers who had already begun their assault. But Alyra and Ethan fought with everything they had, pushing forward, knowing this was their last chance. As they reached the ship's core, Alyra slammed the disruptor into place. The system began to hum, charging with energy. The flagship's power would soon falter, throwing the entire fleet into disarray. "We've done it," Alyra breathed, her chest heaving from the effort. But before they could celebrate, Rykar appeared, his face twisted with rage. "You're too late." Ethan and Alyra turned to face him, blasters ready. The storm was here, and there was no turning back. The battle within. The core of the Imperial flagship was an endless maze of steel corridors, lit only by the cold, sterile glow of emergency lights. Ethan and Alyra ran side by side, their breaths heavy, hearts pounding. The disruptor was in place, but their mission was far from over. They had to escape before the entire ship's systems failed, triggering a massive chain reaction that would take the fleet down with it. "We need to get out of here now," Ethan shouted, his voice barely audible over the alarms that blared through the corridors. Alyra glanced back as they sprinted through the halls. "Rykar won't let us go that easily." They could feel the weight of Rykar's presence. The Emperor's ruthless commander wasn't just any enemy. He was Alyra's kin, her brother, a relentless warrior who had risen through the ranks of the Empire. He had always harbored a deep hatred for humans, and now saw Alyra's actions as the ultimate betrayal. As they rounded another corner, soldiers appeared, their blasters aimed directly at Ethan and Alyra. Without missing a beat, Ethan fired back, the sound of his blaster echoing through the narrow hallways. Alyra followed suit, her movements quick and precise, honed by years of Imperial training. Together, they fought with everything they had, inching closer to their shuttle. Suddenly, the ship's structure shook violently beneath them. The disruptor's effect was starting to ripple through the flagship's systems. Lights flickered, and a deep hum began to reverberate through the hull. "We don't have much time," Alyra shouted, her voice tense with urgency. Ethan nodded, breathing hard. "We're close, just a few more corridors." But as they neared the docking bay, a chilling voice echoed through the ship's comms. "You can't escape me, Alyra." It was Rykar. Ethan gritted his teeth. "He's coming." Alyra's eyes darkened. "I know." The docking bay was just ahead, the shuttle in sight. But as they sprinted toward it, Rykar stepped into their path, flanked by his elite guard. His cold, calculating eyes locked onto Alyra. "You've gone too far, sister," Rykar hissed, his voice venomous. "You've chosen them over your own blood." Alyra raised her blaster, her heart heavy with the weight of her choices. "I chose what's right, Rykar. The Empire has to be stopped." Rykar's expression twisted into a sneer. "You think these humans are worth saving? They're weak, beneath us." Ethan stepped forward, his blaster still aimed at Rykar. "We're not as weak as you think." Rykar laughed, a dark, mocking sound. "You're nothing compared to the Empire's might. And now, you will die with them." Without another word, Rykar lunged at them, his elite guards following close behind. The battle was fierce, the clash of blasters and energy blades echoing through the docking bay. Ethan and Alyra fought with everything they had, but Rykar was relentless, his strength and skill unmatched. As Rykar and Alyra locked in combat, it became clear that this was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for Alyra's soul. She had betrayed her family, her people, all for the sake of a species Rykar saw as inferior. But in her heart, Alyra knew she had made the right choice. Humanity deserved a chance, and she would fight to give them that chance, even if it meant facing her brother in battle. The ship shook violently again, the disruptor's power surging through the systems. Time was running out. Ethan, seeing an opening, charged at Rykar, tackling him to the ground. Go, Alara. Get to the shuttle. Just as the shuttle cleared the docking bay, the flagship erupted into chaos. Explosions ripped through the massive vessel, and the Imperial fleet was thrown into disarray. The battle was far from over, but Earth now had a fighting chance. Alara's chest tightened as she piloted the shuttle away from the destruction. She had saved humanity, but at what cost? Ethan's fate remained unknown, and her heart ached with the uncertainty of it all. The war was not yet won, but for the first time, hope flickered on the horizon. We're not as weak as you think. Rykar laughed, a dark, mocking sound. You're nothing compared to the Empire's might, and now you will die with them. Without another word, Rykar lunged at them, his elite guards following close behind. The battle was fierce, the clash of blasters and energy blades echoing through the docking bay. Ethan and Alara fought with everything they had, but Rykar was relentless, his strength and skill unmatched. As Rykar and Alara locked in combat, it became clear that this was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for Alara's soul. She had betrayed her family, her people, all for the sake of a species Rykar saw as inferior. But in her heart, Alara knew she had made the right choice. Humanity deserved a chance, and she would fight to give them that chance, even if it meant facing her brother in battle. The ship shook violently again, the disruptor's power surging through the systems. Time was running out. Ethan, seeing an opening, charged at Rykar, tackling him to the ground. Go, Alara. Get to the shuttle. A new dawn. The blackness of space stretched out before Alara, the stars silent witnesses to the chaos unfolding behind her. The Imperial fleet, once an unstoppable force, was now in ruins. The disruptor had done its job, leaving the mighty warships vulnerable and scattered, but Alara's heart remained heavy. She could still feel the weight of the battle, and the loss of Ethan gnawed at her soul. As she guided the shuttle towards Earth, the silence of the cockpit felt suffocating. She replayed the final moments on the Imperial flagship over and over in her mind. Ethan's sacrifice, the look in his eyes, his final words urging her to go. She had done what she had to, but the guilt lingered, a heavy burden on her shoulders. Suddenly, a faint transmission crackled through the comms, breaking the silence. Alara, do you copy? Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly adjusted the signal. Ethan, is that you? The voice came through clearer this time. Yeah, it's me. Took a little longer to shake off your brother, but I'm not that easy to kill. A wave of relief washed over her, and she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You're alive. Ethan chuckled softly. Yeah, barely. I managed to get to an escape pod just in time. I'm on my way back to Earth now. Alara leaned back in her seat, her tense muscles finally relaxing. I thought I lost you. Not yet, Ethan replied, his tone light despite the harrowing situation they had just escaped. We've still got work to do. Alara couldn't help but smile, though it was bittersweet. You were right, Ethan. The Empire. Alara couldn't help but smile, though it was bittersweet. You were right, Ethan. The Empire. They aren't invincible. And neither are we. Ethan added, his voice steady. But we've proven we can fight back. As their shuttles approached Earth, the planet slowly came into view, a blue and green orb floating in the vastness of space. Despite everything that had happened, the sight filled Alara with hope. Earth had been saved, at least for now, and the future was uncertain. But for the first time, it felt like there was a chance, however small, that they could win this war. As they entered the atmosphere, Alara could see the signs of battle still raging below. The Empire's ground forces hadn't given up, and Earth's defenders were still holding the line. It was clear that this war was far from over. Ethan, Alara said, her voice firm. We need to finish this. We will, he replied, but we can't do it alone. Alara nodded, knowing what had to be done. I'll reach out to the resistance. There are still those in the galaxy who oppose the Empire, but they need a symbol of hope. We've shown them that the Empire can be defeated. And you'll be that symbol, Ethan said. Elira hesitated. Me? You're the one who broke away from the Empire, who turned against everything they stand for, Ethan explained. You're the one who chose to fight for something better. Elira felt the weight of his words. She had always been a soldier, trained to follow orders, never to question the will of the Empire. But now, she stood at the center of a revolution, a movement that could change the galaxy forever. I'll fight, she said quietly, more to herself than to Ethan. I'll fight for Earth, for the humans who showed me there's another way. Ethan smiled on the other end of the transmission. And we'll fight with you. The shuttle touched down on Earth, the landing smooth despite the chaos surrounding them. As Elira disembarked, she was met with the sight of resistance fighters and soldiers regrouping, preparing for the next wave. The battle wasn't over, but their spirits were lifted. They had dealt the Empire a serious blow, and now, with Elira by their side, they had a chance to win this war. Ethan's shuttle landed nearby, and he emerged, bruised but alive. He made his way over to Elira. Ethan's shuttle landed nearby, and he emerged, bruised but alive. He made his way over to Elira, a determined look in his eyes. Ready to make history. Elira nodded, her heart swelling with resolve. Ready. Together, they stood on the war-torn surface of Earth, their gazes fixed on the stars. The Empire's power had been shaken, but its forces would return. And when they did, Elira and Ethan would be there, leading the fight for humanity's survival. The war for Earth, and for the freedom of the galaxy, was just beginning. But for the first time, it felt like victory wasn't a distant dream. It was a possibility, and with the strength of humanity, and Elira's newfound purpose, they would fight until the very end. A new dawn was breaking. The Empire's reign of terror was coming to an end, and in its place, something far more powerful was rising. Hope.